All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat today. Our next guest is a drummer on the scene and in reality, sealed in movie history fame by Cameron Crowe as the beat behind Stillwater in the awesome film Almost Famous. He made a cameo in Crowe's Vanilla Sky, reprising his same character, Ed Valancourt, leading to that theory that, hey, we might be living in the same realities here. So, everybody, please humbly welcome John Fedevich. Thank you so much for taking time out with us today, sir.
Hey guys, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So let me ask you a question. Let's get right into it. You still consider yourself a drummer before an actor, right? Is that the case?
Yeah, yes, like, absolutely.
It's the mid '90s, and your band, the Suitors, has found some success, a record deal moving from Cleveland to Las Vegas. So when
Yeah,
I read that, like packing up your life and moving to follow your dream, that is a huge choice. So I know.
yeah.
So music, like when did the passion for music begin, and can you talk about that?
You know, when I was youngster, my brother played guitar and stuff, and my brother and sister always used to play music in the house and whatnot. So I'm the youngest, and I always say that I'm a music fan first before a musician. And so that's, I think, being the youngest kid in the house, it was, with people playing records and whatnot, got me motivated and interested in music. And then my brother picked up the guitar. And, at the time I was into, Van Halen and those kind of bands. And there was two brothers in a band. I was like, oh man, this will be cool. My brother will play guitar and I'll be the drummer in the band. And so, yeah, that's it. So that was the initial thing that started. And then in my school system, we had, public school system, we had, band and all that kind of stuff. So my brother was in the band, in school. And I was like, oh, I'll be in the band and I'll be a band nerd and all that kind of stuff. And I actually started on trumpet. That was my first instrument. And then drums, because of music and being a fan of music, I was just drawn to the drums. And so that's kind of the initial process of me getting into music and being a lifelong thing. So
Was the record deal in Japan, was that kind of like the first milestone where you're like, okay, this is becoming successful?
not really, because there were like years before that happened that we were traveling back and forth to California from Cleveland because we were based in Cleveland, and we would go out to California showcase. We'd had an apartment out there for a while that we'd stay there, just play some shows, and then a band member would fall off. Mainly bass players would just quit, and then we'd move back to Cleveland and try to find a guy with the same kind of motives that we had, in the Midwest kind of upbringing, because we were like all about that, and because we were auditioning people in Los Angeles, and it's just kind of flaky, jokey kind of dudes, and so we just forget it. We'll go back to Cleveland, find a buddy of ours or someone that we know, and then we ended up moving back out to LA, doing the whole thing over again. So that record came about a significant time after that, and when we got that record deal and stuff. And we actually did it here in Vegas with the guitar player from Mr. Big, Paul Gilbert. He actually engineered. Well, he actually produced it, I guess. If you want to call it that. But we recorded at his house. Yeah.
It is always good to meet another trumpet brother. I tell you, man, that's the instrument I started on, and if I just something about my overture. I just knew I wanted to kiss a lot of girls and act one day, so I had to give it up, man. I was starting to get that permanent mouthpiece thing around my mouth.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that, no joking aside, is that because I started on trumpet and in the school band, I was able to read. So then my transition into the percussion section, I automatically went to timpani because I could read music and stuff. So, and then
It's nothing like
yeah,
reading music, man. I'll tell you that. It's still to this day, it's nothing like reading it. Now, you credited one of your you say speaking of guys, somebody you guys were familiar with. Now, you credit your acting debut. You're basically you credit your acting debut in Almost Famous to a hometown friend, Mark Kozalek. I got to ask you this. You say you guys get back. You're the bassist thing. When you get back, how soon is it that you find this basis that you guys are going to work with? And clearly it's Mark, but how soon does that transition happen? Because I know you gave him credit for your acting debut, and I just want to know about that.
Yeah, so Mark wasn't even involved with the Zooters or any of that band. Mark was before that, actually. Mark and I hooked up like when I wasn't even able to, 13, maybe 12, 13. I just got my drums and I was playing in a church band, and then we ended up rehearsing at someone's house, and then Mark shows up and I was just like, who's this guy? We gotta be in a bit, this guy's gotta be the guitar player. Because Mark's actually a guitar player, but he was casted as a bass player in the film. And so that was when I first met Mark, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be in a band with him. And then forget about my brother, right? Forget about the band I'm gonna have with my brother. So Mark and I started a band together way before the Zooters. So it goes way back.
I was going to ask, can you tell us about that audition and what was it like to even, like I say, even landing that part? What was that like? I mean, it has to be like you're not just you're landing a part for something you actually do. So that's, I mean, talk about that, man.
Yeah. So initially got the audition through Mark because he was casted first, and then I was doing a gig at the Coconut Teaser in LA, and Mark was in town, so I had him come up to the gig. So that was the whole reason. This is timing, you know. He saw me at this gig, and he was like, "Dude, I think you should audition for this thing that I'm doing. You know, it's a Cameron Crowe film, and I'm going to give your name to the casting director." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't act. I don't know what, you know, what's." So sure enough, a week later, casting director calls me, "Hey, we got your name, and would you be interested in coming out to Los Angeles and auditioning for this film?" And I'm like, yeah. But, you know, back then I didn't even, you know, Cameron Crowe, I know he did this film and I knew he did this other one, but I wasn't really that familiar. And then my girlfriend at the time was like, "Oh my God, it's Cameron Crowe. Are you kidding me? Oh my God." She was freaking out more than I was. So yeah, so then I flew out to LA. Prior to that, they gave me a small script to read and memorize, which was kind of tough, because I hadn't, memorizing lines and stuff. I had never done that. And so I just remember being on gigs here in Vegas, because this is when I was living in Vegas at the time. And I was rehearsing my lines between sets and stuff. I'd have the guitar player, you be this person, and I'll be myself. And I want to practice my lines. And so we went through that whole process. And then I flew out to LA and auditioned with the casting director. I think her name is Gail, and Cameron Crowe. And it was awesome, man. Cameron Crowe is so cool, man. It just really like easy to talk to and relate music stuff to. And of course, he has a huge history in the music industry and in journalism. And I was just like, oh man, this is cool. This is so cool. And then, I was like hearing who else auditioned for my part. And I'm like, oh, there's no way I'm going to get this, man. Professional drummers in bands and auditioned for it. And then professional actors as well auditioned for it. I think Jason Schwartzman actually auditioned for it too. But funny enough, I was in another film with him. But yeah, that was it, man. It was cool. It was totally cool. It was a little nerve wracking being a drummer, and coming in, and I get there and just going through the whole thing. I'm memorizing those lines and repeating them in front of Cameron Crowe, who wrote the dang script and everything. And
it's interesting that you talk about the dialogue being a challenge to memorize, because to me, I can't imagine how drummers can remember where the beat changes in every song during a tour like
breakdown.
That. Yeah, so was there how was that transition for you, or did you use how you were able to remember things musically? Did that translate at all into acting?
I don't, it's for music and drumming, I think is totally different, because when it comes to drumming and stuff, I've been doing that so long, it's just natural for me, obviously, but it is mathematical in a way too. It's, you got 8 bars, you got 12 bars, and it kind of gets imprinted into your mind and stuff. So you don't even think about it. So I don't think I've acted enough to get that kind of timing down. Maybe if I've done more work and more auditioning or more interplay between myself and another actor, I could get kind of that timing down, which would be, totally relatable to drumming. Absolutely. The rhythm of phrasing and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, question: before landing this role, had you had any prior acting experience, whether it be Cameo or anything you auditioned for, or was just like, hey, this is it, we're coming in hot?
This is it. I had never acted before, and at the time, I've been playing in bands and stuff here in Vegas, and with the Zooter band and stuff, and I was just like, and that was coming kind of to an end of a cycle with me, and I was like, I get dedicated many years to that band, and I was like, yeah, and I'd already been formed another band with a female singer, so I was in 2 bands at the time, and I was like, and this came about. I was like, this is a good time to change some things up, try some different things, and so no, I had never acted. I just dove right into it.
Yeah, that's crazy. And the first, and you're in a Cameron Crowe film with
Right.
and then so then a year later and I'm very interested about this because you reprise your role as Ed Valancourt in a cameo in Vanilla Sky, and I'm curious how that conversation went, like how that was pitched to you, because I'm secretly hoping that it clues us in on some kind of theory in the movie, like Cameron Crowe said, I want this to be in a particular universe, and so like how was that pitched to you?
Okay, well, anyway, I don't know if this is gonna either be good or bad for how you think it is, but Cameron called me up and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing this film with Tom Cruise. Would you mind just coming down and being one of the guys in the club's restroom, and you're gonna make fun of Tom Cruise and you're gonna kind of heckle him and make fun of him." And so I was just like, "Sure, of course." And at the time I was living in Burbank and stuff, so I was like, yeah, I'll just drive down to the lot, and we hung out, and Mark was obviously casted too, and so Mark and I hung out, and that was it. There's nothing more than that. He just called me up and said, "Hey, we just want you to come down and be these like kind of like background characters," and that's all I took from it.
Yeah, you've resolved nothing in my soul. If anything, there's just more questions now.
That film blows my mind. So I mean, I have to watch it. I should have watched it again to maybe get more. Maybe if something would have clicked, but I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Let me ask you a question. Like you say, it was a quick decision. You drove down. Let me ask you this. Okay, so maybe it was a quick drive down, but as you know, as you've seen film and being on film, just because even though it's a quick scene doesn't mean you're on set for 2-3 minutes. So let me ask you this: for the brief time you had there, how long were you on set for?
For that day, it was a whole day. It was just one day of shooting. I don't remember having to go back the next day or anything. So it was one day, but we were there all day. I mean, it was probably 12 hours or more. Yeah. It was cool to know that Tom Cruise and I are the same height. We're about 5'6", 5'6.5". So he's a small dude, man.
So as an objective observer, what would you say your favorite scene in Vanilla Sky is?
I gotta say, probably the scene where he's in New York City and there's no one around. It's the one scene that comes around, when it's New York City's, Times Square is totally empty. I'm like, that's incredible. Not that was a significant scene. I don't know, but it's just the atmosphere that portrayed. I thought that was pretty magnificent. And, I'm not that. I should have watched it again.
Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate honesty when I hear it. Real quick.
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, it's funny you say that's your favorite scene, because it makes me think now, it's almost where I think they got the premise for I Am Legend for, because remember, he's in New York and all that thing is just that same eerie feel. So that kind of gives that feel.
I remember watching it, though, and when I first saw it in theaters and thinking how impressive that was was done with no special effects, like
no CGI or anything, huh?
And it really is an important part in the movie, because it tells you everything you need to know about David Ames. He is like dependent on people and very vain, and that's like the two running themes throughout the movies.
Yes.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Let me ask you a question. Like you said, you didn't get a chance to rewatch it, so I guess this may be kind of an open-ended question, but let me ask you this. Personally, from what you remember, did you have a theory on what you thought, what the was happening in this film? Did you ever just ask yourself that at any time?
I mean, you could run through the theories that it was a dream or that he was already dead or stuff like that. which are really good theories. But that's about all I thought about it. I guess you could look at it as he was already dead, and maybe an afterlife, or maybe a dream. And then you could also, the simple, was he dreaming this whole thing up, or, but that's all I can. Other than that, I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea.
After you played here, from there you went on to play in another fictional on-screen band, Hot Tears. Love the name, by the way. It's in Steve Martin's Shopgirl. Now, let me ask you a question. Did that role come from your work with Cameron Crowe, or did your buddy Mark, who plays Luther in the film, by the way, did he kind of throw your alley-oop on that one too, kind of hold the door on you?
Yeah, at the time, Mark called me, and the director of that film was a fan of Mark and his band Red House Painters. And Mark was just like, knew that I was in town and stuff, and it's like, he's like, can you help me out with this one too? I'm like, absolutely, dude. So I think the bass player that in that film was the guy from the band Low, if I do recall. And so yeah, it was just a trio band stuff. Yeah, so Mark hooked me up with that one too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Dude, you are so money, man. You are in the right place at the right time all the time. Whenever we call, please pick up to us.
So
no doubt.
The way it plays out, and even like hearing you talk about it, it seems almost effortless. But was there like an internal pressure that you felt, like a trial by fire? Because like you say, you have no prior acting experience, and then you're being directed by Cameron Crowe, you're being directed by Steve Martin, you're sharing the screen with the likes of Tom Cruise, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Was there ever a moment where you got inside your head and thought, like, what is that called, like imposter syndrome or something?
Yeah.
Like
why am I here?
Yeah. Not to imply that that's the case, but being a self-conscious person myself, I'd like putting myself in your shoes. I could imagine.
Oh, totally. Dude, I'm a drummer. I'm totally self-conscious, man. But the fact that Almost Famous was kind of like broke the ice for me jumping into the acting thing. I think everything else after that, I was just like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, this is what I did in Almost Famous, and I can take direction of, obviously. And I've been in bands. People tell me what to play and how to interpret a song or whatever. And so, it was. I didn't feel out of place. And that has to do with the directors being so cool and all the other cast members being really, really cool to new people, especially on the Almost Famous cast. I mean, everyone was approachable. No one was like, don't talk to me. I'm having, whatever. You can interrupt them anytime you wanted, talk to them. And no one thought any different, of you for doing anything like that.
Let me ask you this now. At any point in your life, I know you said you had never been in a film, but was acting something you ever truly aspired to do? Because we know the passion you have for drumming. So was it more like, hey, I want to do acting, or you know what, these guys need somebody to play the drums. They're doing a film. Hey, why not me? Whatever.
Yeah, that was one reason why I moved back to LA after doing Almost Famous. I was like, I'm just going to stick in LA, and if something. If something else falls into my lap, like 2 other films did, I'd be there to kind of to reel it in and do it. And then the other side of me was like, I'll just be here, and maybe I should, keep in contact with the casting director from Almost Famous, which I did. And she pointed me in gave me some pointers and pointed me in a certain direction to maybe, and I should take up some acting classes and stuff like that. And so there was a tipping point. I was like, do I want should I just start acting and forget about music, or try to do both, or should I just like continue just being a musician and stuff? And I gotta say, at the time I was living in Los Angeles, it was beating me down a little bit living there. And I was like, oh, I don't know what I should do. And so I ended up moving back to Las Vegas and just pursuing music, So
what was it about? I could probably make assumptions, but what was it about LA that was like getting to you the most?
Probably just the hugeness of it, the sprawl, the traffic. And yeah. I just joined a band called Orson, who actually got a deal with Mercury Records in England, and I quit before they, had any success. But I was just driving down to downtown rehearsals in LA and driving back and driving up, and I don't know. It just, I don't know. It's at that time. It's like I didn't want to start a new career in LA. Pursuing the acting thing with so many other actors out there and stuff that were way better than I am, and I just thought, I'm gonna stick with music. My passion is with drumming. And
jumping back on the music side quickly, what's your favorite Billy Joel song to play, and what's your favorite one to hear?
Probably my favorite one to play, because it's so intense and pretty intricate. It's almost like a progressive rock song. Is Prelude, Angry Young Man. It starts with the piano. That's probably my favorite song to play. And then Big Shot is probably my favorite Billy Joel song, which is fun to play too, because it's got big shot, you're hitting, it's loud, Liberty DeVito banging on the drums and stuff. So, but those are my two favorite right there. I just read the Liberty DeVito's book, by the way. He's got a biography out. He was Billy's original drummer. Stuff.
Oh, nice. So in 2017, you joined Asia featuring John Payne. What do you enjoy most about like playing like that on a routine basis?
Doing the Asia music is another thing that it's involved. It's like some progressive rock. It's odd timing. It's not your typical 2 and 4 beats. It's something that I had never done before. That being said, I was always a Carl Palmer fan, and the first time Asia came through northeastern Ohio, I think it might have been our first or second date. I was at E.J. Thomas and watching Asia play. So that was back in 80, 81 maybe. And so no, it's a really fun time when we're out on the road and playing all the songs from back in that era and stuff, and all the songs that John wrote with Asia too. And it's great. It's,
awesome.
Yeah, you can play heavy and hard and grooving and stuff. And we usually play, like bigger venues, and outdoor events. So it's always, there's always a lot of people, like fairs and stuff. Kind of thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, all right. Well, parumpa pum pum. We have a little drummer boy there. I'm sorry, I had to do it, man. I had to do it, man. We got a few little drummer questions for you here. Let me ask you a question here. All right, and it may be the same person, so it's kind of a two-parter. Dead or alive, who's your favorite drummer? And if you could have a beer with just one drummer, who would it be? And if it's the same person, cool.
That's funny, because I have a list that. It depends what day you ask me, who my favorite drummer is. But if it's only, you got to whittle it down to one, and probably not because necessarily because of his drumming, Neil Peart, but also because of his intellect, would be a great person to sit down and have a beer with or have a coffee with, Neil Peart from Rush, and obviously he was Rush's lyricist and just passed away a year ago. But he's been always a big influence on me. But there's that's like the prog side of rock music and stuff. But there's also this other side that I have favorite drummers of, from simple pop drumming, like Clem Burke from Blondie and Stan Lynch and Tom Petty. Those guys just simplistic drumming, but played the right thing for the song. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I'm kind of bridging the gap. I play the progressive rock stuff with Asia, and then with Michael Cavanaugh, I'm playing, Liberty DeVito, songcraft oriented drumming parts, which are more basic, but it serves the song. But yeah, there's a lot of drummers I love though right now, man.
Let's go to the other side of the spectrum. Who would you say is the most overrated drummer? And please don't say Lars Ulrich.
No, yeah, and I have shut people down on social media. I go, quit, stop with the Lars bashing, because I don't like that, man. I don't like that. Don't bash. Yeah, hello, the dude started a trend of drumming. What did you do? All right, just sit in your armchair and blah, 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 and I hate Lars. He can't play in time or what? Bullshit, man. That dude, Lars is great. Now, the guy that everyone loves, that I'm just like, I never got, and I'm like, wow, and everyone Tommy Lee. I don't know. Tommy Lee of Motley Crue. I mean, he did some innovative things visually and whatnot.
Yeah, Pamela Anderson.
I don't know. Sorry, I just never got into him, man. I don't know. I know people love him, and I just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
He hits hard. He hits hard, man. But,
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let me ask you this: what songs features the best drums? Like, if there's a song like most people like, hey, I bit the drums off of this. I want to play off the drum. Like, what song comes to mind? Like, you know what, man? Every time I hear that song, when the drums come in, that really takes it up to that level for me.
dude, absolutely. You know what song it is? My Sharona from the Knack. Come on. It starts with that. It's so great.
You almost started playing right there. Yeah.
Excellent, man. That's what starts a song. It's like the drumming in that is like, Bruce Gary is a great drummer that played on that record. It's kind of Keith Moon of The Who, but a little bit more contained and another songcrafty drummer. That whole record from top to bottom, it's like early 60s style drumming, Ringo Starr, but loud drums, man. You can hear how loud there's drums on that record. It's like awesome.
Now I want to hear that song now.
But there's a lot of drum-oriented songs, man. I mean, even Blondie's song "Dreaming" by Blondie, it's just on the floor, just beating the floor time, and all the drum fills in that on the toms. It's awesome.
Awesome. Before we let you go, I did want to say this first. Again, we thank you so much for coming on. But listen, with this pandemic and everybody trying to get back to, as they call it, the new normal, with you being a full-time musician, we know things can change here or there. But let me ask you this: are there any dates coming up that people can look out for, where they can find you, and where else can they find you social media wise to see the things that you've done and find out more about you?
If you look, you just do the Asia or the Michael Cavanaugh. Those are my two bands that I've been touring with the most over the years. And I'll be in Florida actually, May 1st, playing with Asia. I'm not sure where it's at. I have to look that up. And I'm kind of like, is it really going to happen or not? So I'm like, we'll see. If you look on Facebook and Instagram, I have a bunch. I usually keep up to date on that, just with pictures of drums or my dates or music or links of stuff. Most recently, I did a virtual thing with Michael a few months ago in November, when that's out there somewhere on the ether, whatever. And I don't have a lot of stuff drumming wise coming up, although I've been doing, because of the pandemic and stuff, it's made me like reevaluate my home studio and stuff, which I'm in right now. It's small. It's like 11 by 11 room, but I ended up making sound panels for it. I ended up finally getting my DAW to where I can understand it, and how I can record, and setting up the drums and stuff and making them sound right, and just, deadening or living them up. And I've been doing some demos for some people and stuff. A girl that I met, I'm friends with her father, Sophia McIntosh. I did a show in Kalamazoo this summer with her, and I've been working on her demo. She's like a Nashville kind of girl, but she's based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Okay. And I've been working with her a little bit. We did a show, like I said, in the summer, and it was kind of a timing thing. I because of the pandemic, my girl and I decided just to drive back and have home base in Michigan for 2 months. And a friend of hers, who's Mike McIntosh, contacted me. Hey, you guys are coming back in town, huh? So would you think Johnny would want to play with my daughter in the show? I'm like, hell yeah, I'll do it. She's a great artist, and so I've been hooked up with her. And so we'll see. I hope so. She's really young, great songwriter. So look her up and look at Sophia McIntosh. Look her up, and you can check out some of her songs and stuff.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, today, once again, we had Johnny 1, 2, 3 Fedevich with us. And listen, man, hey, listen, we wish you nothing but great success this year and moving forward, man. Please keep being who you are, man. And we appreciate you taking the time out to be on the show. We're going to make you look good. You made us look good, man. And hey, peace and blessings to you, sir.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Anytime, guys. Thank you, man.
All right.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.